Two quick announcements before we begin. First, this episode, the Gen X Manifesto, was originally published in July of 2025. Welcome to all the new listeners and followers of this project, and enjoy one of our flagship episodes. New episodes return next Tuesday. Second, big announcement, the Tao of Lloyd is going to be making its world premiere as a live solo theater show at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, August 6th through the 30th, 2026. For more information about that project, visit taooflloyd.com. That's T-A-O of Lloyd with two L's.com. Now, enjoy the Gen X Manifesto. Welcome to the Tao of Lloyd. I'm Lloyd Dobler. Yeah, that Lloyd Dobler, the guy with the boombox from Say Anything, except I'm not a teenager anymore. I'm not chasing Diane Court anymore. I am not holding a boombox over my head. I am holding up a middle finger pointed at late stage fucking everything in the form of this here Generation X Manifesto. Today, we're talking about my generation, Generation X, the forgotten middle child of American history, wedged between the boomers who broke the planet and the millennials who got student debt, climate collapse, and a side of avocado toast. We grew up during the Reagan years when greed was good and compassion was communist. But before Reaganomics trickled down and melted our future like a mixtape left on the dashboard of empire, something else almost happened. Something wild, something beautiful. Because before the boomers broke the planet, those boomers, our parents, almost stopped the machine and rewrote the ending. Honestly, we were maybe one or two naked drum circle sing-alongs of give peace a chance away from actually giving peace a fucking chance. That is to say, our parents were hippies, man. I mean, not all of them. Sure, my parents were in the military. And as I have been saying since that first dinner date with Diane, that is not an organization I can work for. U.S. foreign policy being the blowback-inducing homicidal bull in a geopolitical china shop that it is. But enough of our friends' parents had beads and bare feet and wide-eyed dreams. There was a moment, however brief, when it seemed like they might actually change the world. In the 1960s, we had a U.S. Senator, Robert Kennedy, speaking out against an apartheid state. In that apartheid state, emboldened by, and this is important, following the lead of a grassroots movement, not leading it, when he said this.
Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance.
And if that grassroots hippie movement wasn't squelched and was able to hold on and keep sending forth those ripples of hope, today we might have a world where the Pentagon's budget went to schools instead of bombs, where housing and healthcare were human rights, and no one ever reached a point of such despair that they became a Luigi Mangione folk hero. Where poverty was a policy failure, not a personal one. Where corporations served communities instead of buying politicians and stuffing them in their back pockets. Where gender wasn't policed, love wasn't legislated, and trans kids were safe enough to grow old. Where billionaires were mythical creatures. Where art didn't need funding because it was considered essential, like oxygen or water. Where community gardens outnumbered police stations. Where no one needed to say Black Lives Matter because it was never in question. Where the genocide in Gaza was called by its name and stopped not in spite of our love for Jewish people, but because of our love for Jewish people and all people, because true solidarity means refusing to let anyone weaponize trauma into apartheid, into rubble, into silence ever again. Where Exxon executives stood trial for ecocide, and better yet, where the climate didn't collapse because the cancer that is capitalism was cut out, and where love actually was all you needed because society made sure that everyone had enough. That's what could have happened if the hippies won. Instead, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated. So was Martin. So was Malcolm X. So was John F. Kennedy. And to usher in the era of Ronald Reagan, they even took out John Lennon. Yeah, imagine no possessions. That lyric alone put him in the crosshairs. And so the hippies didn't so much quit as they just got scared. And really, can you blame them? They cut their hair, got jobs on Wall Street, bought big-ass, gas-guzzling SUVs, and learned to call themselves boomers. The revolution became a resume, and the peace sign got turned into a corporate logo. And that's the world that we inherited. Gen X grew up staring at that ghost, a ghost of what could have been if our parents hadn't been bludgeoned into conformity, if the forerunners to the Project 2025 project hadn't crushed the resistance before it got tenure, if the freaks and radicals and lovers had actually won. Instead, we got reruns, we got Reagan, we got Just Say No and trickle-down trauma. And the truth is, maybe we were supposed to be the second wave, but the tide never came back in. So we raised ourselves on pop culture and Nirvana's oh well, whatever, never mind mantra of low expectations. But buried in our cynicism is the grief of a generation that knows that another world was possible. And it almost happened until the mother fascist showed up early. And now, in 2025, they're here again. ICE agents rounding up people in the streets. The Trump administration's talking about deporting American citizens. And people are asking us why we're not more optimistic. Maybe it's because we've been watching the world end since 1983, Karen. This isn't our first apocalypse. But here's what decades of surviving empire collapse has taught us. You don't beat fascism by meeting force with force. You beat it like water beats rock, by finding the cracks and flowing through them. Speaking of the lessons that we can learn from water, if you were, like me, a Gen X kid watching kung fu flicks on Saturday morning TV, you probably heard Bruce Lee drop knowledge like a clumsy librarian like this.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
And Lao Tzu writes in the Tao Te Ching, doubling down, nothing in the world is softer than water, yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. Okay, Lloyd, I can hear you asking, how am I going to fight fascism with a Bruce Lee Pinterest post and a dog-eared copy of the Tao? Here's the plan. When ICE comes to your neighborhood, don't meet their violence with violence. Redirect their momentum against them. Document everything. Make their brutality visible and expensive. Create sanctuary networks that move like water, flowing around obstacles, impossible to contain. Use economic pressure. Fascism runs on money. cut off the flow and build parallel systems, mutual aid networks, community defense, make government irrelevant by making it unnecessary. And this is wu-wei resistance, right action that flows with natural patterns. So wu-wei, it's a central concept in Taoism. It literally, can mean non-action or effortless action. But don't mistake that for doing nothing, because it is not doing nothing. Imagine a world champion surfer riding a wave, not fighting the ocean, but using its energy. Or a tree bending in the wind instead of breaking. Or people protecting each other from disappearing acts in government vans, not pretending that just doing your job makes you the good guy. So here is your call to action, Generation X. Stop the machine and create a new world. What if we can finish the job that our parents started? Stop the Machine, Create a New World was a slogan of a group I was working with in the run-up to the Occupy Wall Street movement. We were so close in that movement. Now, some of you listening work inside the machine. Your ICE agents, your Border Patrol, your federal bureaucrats, your corporate lawyers who write the contracts. You know who you are. You're listening to this podcast now on your lunch break, wondering why your niece sent you a link to this podcast with the text that just said in all caps, listen. Just listen. So yeah, you can walk in to work tomorrow and say, I am not doing this anymore. One person at a time, one refusal at a time, one moment of sacred resistance at a time. And for the rest of us, we can practice strategic disengagement. For those of you who can, quit your job that breaks your soul. Life's too short to carry water for fascists. Quit consuming their propaganda. Turn off the news. They're selling fear, not information. Quit performing optimism. It's okay to say this is fucked up and you're scared. And quit waiting for permission to help people. Feed the hungry. House the unhoused. Protect your neighbors. And here's what we're building while the empire collapses. Communities that actually take care of each other, not because the government tells us to, but because it's what humans do when we're not being forced into artificial scarcity. We're building an economy based on mutual aid instead of extraction, local food networks, community land trusts, worker cooperatives, things that can't be shipped overseas or automated away. We're making decision-making that happens in circles, not hierarchies. Horizontal democracy, consensus building, the stuff our hippie parents almost figured out before they got scared, put their tails between their legs and went to work on Wall Street. A culture that values rest, creativity, and connection over productivity, competition, and accumulation. And this isn't some utopia. This is just what happens when you stop letting sociopaths make the rules. And here's where the Generation X, my generation, has an advantage. We have something that other generations don't. We expect nothing from the system and everything from each other. Shit, we've been practicing mutual aid since we were latchkey kids, sharing Pop-Tarts, Nintendo cheat codes, and the absolute knowledge that those duck and cover drills they made us do in elementary school would do absolutely fuck nuts zero to save us. We're trauma experts with dark humor and low expectations. We can stare into the abyss without flinching, keep going when hope feels like a luxury we can't afford. We may not be heroes, but we are survivors. And survival, it turns out, is a radical act in a world designed to break you. So we are the generation that can stand in front of this tank, this Trump Project 25 fascist tank like that kid in Tiananmen Square and create a moment for the younger generations to walk through and lead. It's what our hippie parents, the dreamers that they were, not the boomers that they became, would have wanted. We can leverage whatever privilege our age, our race, or class, or gender gives us and create a pause in this fascist machinery and then smash the Overton window of possibility wide open. Like Bruce Lee says, water can flow or it can crash. Right now, in different places, in different situations, and for different people, we need it to do both. So this is my Gen X Manifesto. Share it. Stop the machine. Break it down. Compost the cruelty and plant something human in its place. Be water, patient, persistent, and unstoppable. And in this way, create a new world. From the edge of the empire in the center of the self. This is the Tao of Lloyd.